Church bells in the distance, a carriage clattering over cobblestones, rain battering the windows in silver sheets, and the grandfather clock tolling its warning. Some loves return like weather. Sudden, familiar, impossible to resist. My name is Jane Moore, and this is my story. The lace of my veil felt like a spider's web against my skin. In St. Jude's Chapel, there were no flowers, no hymns, no joy. Only damp stone and the scratch of a fountain pen signing my life away. On the day I married the Duke Rowan Ravenshire, he didn't look at me until the vows ended. When he finally did, it wasn't love. It was a hunter closing a trap. It was revenge. Life at Ravenshire Hall was a symphony of cold sounds. The ticking clock, the crackle of a dying fire, the scratch of my quill. Rowan's footsteps were heavy and deliberate, as if the floorboards owed him money. Before the rings and the cold vows, there was the library. A cathedral of dust and leather, smelling of ancient paper and cedar oil, the scent Rowan used on his mahogany desk. I was the girl in the grey cotton dress, hired to sort the ghosts of his ancestors. A scholarship student working at the Ravenshire Estate library. I was 22. He was 32, master of the house, tall, elegant, impossibly commanding. He had inherited an empire, but it was his presence that ruled. He cast a shadow even in full sunlight. 14th Duke of Ravenshire. Correspondence with the East India Company. 1824, Box 32. I murmured to myself, stacking letters. And then I felt him before I heard him. The air always grew heavier when Rowan entered, as if even the oxygen respected his authority. He didn't speak. He never did. He simply sat in the high-backed velvet chair by the hearth, a glass of amber brandy in one hand and a ledger in the other. But he wasn't reading. I felt his gaze on the back of my neck, a physical weight. You missed a smudge of ink on your cheek, Miss Moore. I froze. My heart gave a traitorous leap. I reached up, fumbling. My apologies, Your Grace. The archives are uncommonly soot-stained this morning. Leave it, he said. The ink suits you. More honest than the rouge the ladies wear at the soirees I'm forced to attend. He stood. His boots crossed the floor in slow, predatory steps. He stopped just behind me. I could smell him. Sandalwood, expensive tobacco, and the cold winter air clinging to his coat. Why do you work like this, Jane? He asked softly. As if the world will end if these letters aren't catalogued by sunset. Your father's debts are not your own. I turned to face him, breathless. In this world, Your Grace, a daughter's reputation is woven from her father's silk. If his silk is frayed, I must mend it. He reached out. For a moment, I thought he might touch my face. His hand hovered near my jaw, his thumb inches from the ink stain. I forgot how to breathe. You are a remarkably poor weaver then, he murmured. Because you are failing. I was stung. Sir. The debt is too high. You could spend 100 years in this library and never earn enough to save him. He is a drowning man, Jane, and he is pulling you under. Then I shall drown, I whispered. It is better than being heartless. His eyes flashed, something not anger. Hunger, perhaps. Or curiosity. He stepped back, the cold mask sliding into place. I have a proposal, he said. One that would dry your father's tears and put you in silk instead of soot. Meet me here tonight at midnight. Bring a candle. And your courage. He left without another word. I stayed in the silence, fingers trembling as I touched the ink on my cheek. He hadn't just noticed the smudge. He had been watching me for hours. That was the night revenge began. And the night I realized Rowan Ravenshire didn't just want to ruin my father's legacy. He wanted to own my very soul. The echo of a vast empty dining hall and the rhythmic, slow clink-clink of silverware against fine bone china. A fire crackles, but it sounds distant and cold, and there is the occasional pouring of wine. The first month of our marriage was a study of shadows. We lived in Ravenshire Hall like two ghosts haunting the same corridors, never quite crossing paths until the clock struck 8 for dinner. The dining table was a mahogany desert, 20 feet of polished wood separating us. I sat at one end, drowning in the heavy emerald silk Rowan had insisted I wear. He sat at the other, a king on a lonely throne, bathed in the flickering light of a silver candelabra. The dinner ritual began with a sound, the squeak of a chair being pulled out, the heavy pour of red wine. The gardens are looking lovely, Rowan. The roses are finally pushing through the frost. Rowan, distant and monotone, replied, "The head gardener has his instructions. I expect results for the wages I pay." "Is that all everything is to you? Instructions and wages? Even the flowers?" He didn't look up from his roast beef. He sliced through the meat with a precision that made my skin crawl. "Efficiency is the only language the world understands, Jane. Emotion is a luxury for those who don't have empires to maintain." "And what am I, then? An entry in your ledger? One wife, maintained for appearances?" He paused. His knife stayed still against the plate. For a heartbeat, I thought he might scream. Or worse, reach out. But he simply took a sip of his wine, the crystal glass catching the firelight. "You are the lady of the house. Your comfort is guaranteed. Your father's debts are erased. That was the bargain. Do not seek to renegotiate it with dinner conversation." The sound of a lush string quartet playing a waltz. The low hum of 100 aristocratic voices. The clinking of champagne flutes. Then came the nights when the world was watching. In public, Rowan Ravenshire was a different man. He was a predator who had learned to mimic a lover. At the Earl of Derby's ball, the heat was stifling. Perfume and sweat and the smell of beeswax candles. I felt a dozen pairs of eyes, the vultures of London society, waiting for me to trip over my new title. I felt a hand, warm and firm, slid around my waist. "Smile, Jane," Rowan whispered. "Lady Debenham is watching. She wants to see if the scholarship girl is cracking under the weight of the Ravenshire diamonds," he finished. "Perhaps I am. Your hand is like a lead, Rowan." Rowan closer, his breath against my neck. "Then lean into me. Let them think you are swooning with devotion. Give them the performance they paid for." He pulled me, flush against him. To the room. They were the picture of Victorian passion, the powerful Duke and his beautiful, rescued bride. He leaned in, his lips brushing my earlobe as if sharing a dirty secret, but his voice was like ice. "Keep your head up," he murmured. "You are a Ravenshire, now act as if you own the floor they walk on." They danced. Rowan moved with a grace that shouldn't belong to a man so cold. Every time his hand pressed into the small part of my back, a spark shot through me that I hated. I hated him for the lie. And I hated myself because, for a moment, I wanted the lie to be true. The music fades. The muffled sounds of a carriage ride home, the rhythmic clip-clop of horses. Then, the heavy thud of a front door closing. The masquerade ended the moment they crossed the threshold of Ravenshire Hall. He dropped his hand from my waist as if it had been burned. I retreated to the library to numb my mind with a book, but the door to Rowan's study was ajar. Inside, Mr. Sterling's sharp, nasal voice cut through the quiet. "Why her, Rowan? Why the daughter of a man who nearly bankrupted your father?" Rowan's reply was cold enough to frost the windows. "Precision. Sterling. I married her to finalize a liquidation. Every time her father sees her name beside mine, he knows he's lost his legacy. It's temporary. 6 months. She's part of the plan to ensure the moors never rise again." I stood frozen in the hallway, the lace of my gown suddenly feeling like burial cloth. A plan. I wasn't a wife. I wasn't even a person. I was a weapon. The Ravenshire ring on my finger no longer felt like jewelry. It felt like a brand. I didn't go to bed. I waited in the dark hall, listening to the storm gather its fury. I stood at the base of the grand staircase. The storm reached its peak. Thunder cracked so violently the floorboards trembled. Rain lashed the tall windows like handfuls of gravel. The wind howled through the stone corridors, turning the house into a breathing tomb. Shadows from the banisters stretched across the hall like ribs. I waited there, wrapped in silk and fury, listening for the man who had turned my life into a ledger entry. His study door clicked shut. Heavy, rhythmic footsteps approached the gallery. Rowan appeared in a flash of lightning, a dark silhouette carved from the storm. "Jane," he said, startled. "It's nearly 3. Why aren't you in your chambers?" My voice trembled, but it was sharp enough to cut glass. I was waiting for the liquidation to be complete. That's what Mr. Sterling called it, isn't it? My father's final ruin. He froze. Even the storm seemed to pause. "I heard you," I continued. "Part of the plan. A 6-month sentence. Tell me, Rowan, did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the way I looked at you at the ball? Was my performance convincing enough for your revenge?" He stepped closer, voice low. "You shouldn't have been listening at the door, Jane. It's a tawdry habit." "And what is it called?" I snapped, stepping into the light. "To buy a woman's life? To spit on her father's name? Was I ever more than revenge to you? Look at me. Not as Ravenshire. Not as more. Look at me." His jaw tightened. Then he finally met my eyes, and the cracks in his armor showed. "You were supposed to be," he said quietly. "That was the plan. I spent 10 years building a cage for your father. I wanted to take everything he loved and turn it to dust." "Congratulations," I whispered. "You've succeeded. I am dust. I'll leave tonight. I'll take nothing. Not the silk, not the diamonds, not even my dignity." I turned, skirts snapping like a battle flag, but he lunged. He grabbed my wrist, not with cold authority, but with the frantic desperation of a man slipping off a cliff. "No. You stay. You stay because you've ruined it. You've ruined everything." "How?" I cried. "How could I ruin your perfect revenge?" "Because I fell in love with you," he shouted, thunder answering him. "Because the moment you walked into that library with ink on your face and fire in your eyes, the revenge turned to ash in my mouth. I tried to hate you, Jane. I practiced it every morning. But I look at you, and I see the only light I've had in this miserable, grey life." The storm softened, as if even the heavens were listening. He didn't release my wrist. Instead, he pulled me closer until his forehead rested against mine. Rowan Ravenshire, the Iron Duke, the untouchable, was trembling. "You weren't part of the plan," he whispered. "You became the plan." I extended the contract because I couldn't bear the thought of it ending. I told Sterling those things because I was terrified. If I admitted I loved you, I'd have no armor left. I'd be at the mercy of a Moor. And I've been at your mercy since the day we wed. "You have a strange way of showing mercy," I murmured. "I don't know how to do this, Jane. My father taught me how to conquer, buy, and break. He never taught me how to keep something. Please don't go. Stay. Not for the contract. Not for the debt. Stay because I am a man lost without his heart." I searched his eyes. The hunter was gone. In his place stood a man surrounded by the ruins of his own making, hoping I'd help him rebuild. "The contract is over, Rowan," I said softly. He swallowed hard. "I know. If I stay, it won't be for 6 months. It will be for as long as there is ink in the world and air in my lungs. But I will not be part of a plan. I will be your wife. Do you understand?" He didn't speak. He simply pulled me into his arms, burying his face in the crook of my neck. It wasn't a kiss. It was a sob of relief, the sound of a fortress finally collapsing. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered in the halls of Ravenshire. The next weeks unfolded like dawn breaking over a battlefield, quiet, cautious, and strangely tender. The dining hall no longer felt like a mausoleum. The 20-foot mahogany table, once a desert between us, became a relic of our former stubbornness. Rowan insisted we sit side by side at one end. I suspected it was so he could monitor my proximity in case I attempted another midnight escape. He denied this, of course, but his hand always found mine under the table. London society noticed the change. At soirees and theatre nights, Rowan Ravenshire, the Iron Duke, the man who could freeze a ballroom with a single glance, suddenly refused to let go of his wife's hand. The gossips whispered. The dowagers fanned themselves. Lady Ashbourne nearly fainted. Rowan pretended not to hear any of it, though I caught him smirking more than once. 3 months passed. The silence in Ravenshire Hall changed. It was no longer the silence of a tomb, but the quiet of a home catching its breath. One warm afternoon, I sat at the rosewood desk in the library, my library now, and began the letter I had rewritten 6 times. My dearest Popper, by the time this reaches you, the spring lilies will be in bloom. I write to tell you the final accounts have been settled. The Moore name is clear. You are a free man. But more importantly, Popper, I am a free woman. For so long, I believed I was the currency used to pay for your mistakes. I believed Rowan Ravenshire was my jailer. I believed I was living a 6-month sentence in a gilded cage. How strange, then, that the man who sought to ruin us is the only man who truly saw me. He did not want a trophy. He did not even want his revenge, though he clung to it like a shield. He wanted a partner. Do not worry for me. When we walk through the gardens now, he does not give me instructions. He asks for my thoughts. When we sit at that long dining table, we sit together, and the distance between us has vanished. Rowan is standing by the window now, watching the sun set over the oaks. He still carries the weight of his empire, but he no longer carries it alone. He just turned to look at me, and Popper. There is no revenge in his eyes. Only a quiet, steady light that tells me I am exactly where I was meant to be. Your loving daughter, Jane. I folded the parchment and pressed the Lauron seal into the wax. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. Rowan's voice drifted from the window, warm and soft. Is it finished, Jane? Yes, Rowan. The past is finally put to rest. Then come, he said, offering his hand. The stars are coming out. I want to show you the observatory. There are worlds out there, Jane, and I want to see every one of them with you. I took his hand. His palm was warm, his grip sure. We walked out of the library together, leaving the old contracts and bitter plans behind us in the shadows. We didn't marry for love, but we stayed for it. And in the end, that was the only plan that mattered. The end.